This is a podcast or something like that.
How's it going? I found a hat. There was a big controversy last episode. By the way, welcome to the Verbal Journal Podcast, episode 113. Welcome to the public. Big controversy last episode. I didn't seem to own a hat. There were a lot of issues around that. Seem to have forgotten how to wear hats. I don't know if that's the right setting. And obviously I needed a hat last episode because I was apologizing for my bad audio the previous episode, and so normally a hat could be kind of symbolic of an apology. I guess it's supposed to be hat in hand. Well, I'm not really sorry about that anymore. So now I'm just wearing the hat to prove I own a hat. So, and for, style and so on. Hello, welcome to the podcast. I already said that. Hi, and I'll take off the hat eventually. So if you don't like it, don't worry. You know what I mean? Also, it's a podcast. You could just listen to it. Except for the video segment, which will come up later, which, we're all very excited about the video segment. And here we are. So if you don't know about this podcast, I do it every week, every Sunday, and I've been doing it for a while now, over 2 years, a lot of people are saying, 2.5 years almost. And I've learned a lot about podcasting and related subjects. Last episode can we talk about last episode? I know it's a little bit early in the episode to be talking about last episode, but it's good. I have good things to say. It's not like normal where I'm criticizing it and so on. This is the channel that you are watching this on, so feel free to give a subscription to it. What was I going to say? This is the previous episode. Obviously, things were great. What did I have to say about it? Oh, it was so long. Yeah, hopefully this episode's not so long. Yeah, I'm already getting sick of the hat. 140 hours is what that means. No, 1 hour, 40 minutes. I'm sorry. But still very long. And that's good. Hopefully that's a one-time thing, and we don't do that anymore. Okay, so that's the intro. We try to not go too long, and I hope you enjoyed the intro. I like to have a coffee, make sure I stay hyped. There's been a lot of comments. People are like, you're kind of low energy on the podcast. I'm like, okay. I guess I'll drink coffee if you demand it. So the reason last episode was so long was I went into a lot of news. There was a lot of things happening last week. Luckily, there was nothing that happened this past week, so we shouldn't have any news. We do have news. Okay, yeah. No, we do have news. But it's a lot of good news, actually. There's been a lot of good news, so if you're looking for uplifting stuff. But let's start, before we get into that, when I do the public episode, I like to start off with the horizontal integration segment. So the horizontal integration segment is where I integrate the channel, the What's Therapy channel that you probably know me from, with the podcasting initiative enterprise, which is Verbal Journal Corp. So horizontal integration, what I'll usually do is talk about things going on the main channel. So obviously there's not too much going on. I did, the new videos out. People are loving it. I did a live stream, but I talked about that last week. So really not that much to talk about, except that I did a community post. So maybe you saw that. I did a community post trying to speak out about what Israel's doing. Because I feel like as a Jewish person, I have this sort of unique ability to make it clear that I, as a Jew, do not feel the need for a ethno-state to feel safe, and that we should not upend the way we think about statehood and rights, just so that Jews can have our own state. That is supported by massive violence and displacement. So I have been speaking out more as I've been growing out my beard, so no one can call me anti-Semitic. Someone actually commented, they're like, as a Jew, yeah, right. I'm like, really? Like, really? Historically, I don't think Jews tend to, I don't think non-Jews pretend to be Jews. Historically, it's usually the opposite. So, anyways, so post, 800, 800 thumbs ups. That's normal for me. That's like what every single post gets, basically. 65 comments, 800 thumbs up. That's like normal. You know what I mean? That's like every single thing. Like, look, you look back at the previous, me posting about the podcast. Okay, this one was only 15, and one comment. Hold on. Let's look at a different example. So these are just other recent posts. Why is it's only 4? And then what's this one? This one's probably 700. 18. Okay. So, you know what? I stand corrected. Actually, that is a huge response, apparently. 800. So that is the most likes. I don't know what we call them. Up likes. 802 is huge, and it's actually really interesting. Like that. I've talked about this before, but you get such a response on certain types of posts. And like, if I post my own stuff or like I link to like the side channel or something, which is What's Therapy Side, by the way, like no one sees it. Or like, I think no one sees it. I mean, you can look at the analytics. I think they show you like the impressions and the click rate and stuff, even on the post. But like, this is remarkable to get 800 votes. So anyways, I'm glad, people are obviously appreciating it. There's a few arguments going on in the comments, but, when I saw the recent shooting of those 2 people, the Israeli embassy workers in the United States, and then immediately, like before really much information comes out at all the Zionists are saying, oh, wow, it's anti-Semitism, using this violence to act as alleged proof for the need for a Zionist ethno-state. And that's how this all works. So to me, that's so scary. And I feel like it's such an obligation as a Jew to speak out and be like, look, we can be against violence and killing like this. And we can still say this is not the type of thing that justifies an ethno-state. Period. So. Anyways, so yeah, biggest response on a community post I've ever had. So I guess I'll keep being an anti-Zionist. No, I should have thrown subscribe to the Verbal Journal podcast on there. I'm sorry. I should have thrown that at the bottom. Hey, let's get rid of ethno-states. And by the way, check out my podcast. So I do apologize to everyone here at the podcast that I didn't kind of wrap that in. That is a failure on my part as a marketing person. But I do, in my defense, I was unceremoniously relieved of my marketing duties. I believe that was on a public episode too, so people could go watch that. You know what I mean? 2 public episodes ago, I believe. So if you want to know why the marketing is so bad, you could look at that and blame my boss here at the BJP. Bosses. I really have I have so many bosses, actually. Okay. Anyways, welcome. We're already welcomed. Okay, so let's get on to so there's news. We talk about news. Luckily, I try to focus on, so we break up our news. I'm going to just explain this because, people are like, what's going on here? What's the format of the pod? So that was the beginning. Intro, blah, 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 this or that. I put the horizontal integration segment at the beginning when I'm doing the public episode because I figure that's what you all know me from. You know what I mean? You want to get integrated. Now we move into the good news segment, but there was a problem last time. I finally had enough. The problem is you talk about good news and it's like the flip side of bad news. Usually it's like, oh, the bad news stopped for a second. That's the good news. So I realized it just doesn't feel right because when people are watching it, they're like, oh, I'm in the good news segment. And then like halfway through or like, here and there, I start talking about incredibly, disturbing things in the context of what the good news is related to. That happened last episode. And so I was like, I can't call the segment good news. I take my segments very seriously. So I changed the title of it on the previous episode. I think I called it like mostly good news or something. I honestly forget what I called it. But now, because I was having a hard time naming it, now I've decided to call it Goodish News segment. Because also, I think there was something where I was like, good news. There's something where I didn't want to like hyphenate. I forget what the hyphenation was, or a slash or something. Because if you put that in the description in a timestamp, anything with like confusing punctuation, YouTube gets confused and starts making it so the timestamps don't work at all. Really, I don't know exactly why, but it's fascinating. Anyway, so we're in the Goodish News segment, and let's get on with some Goodish news. I am actually gonna not go into depth on every story because I don't think people need that. I like to just kind of review and know what's going on, give you a little update. A lot of people not paying attention to things, and I do think it's worth just knowing what's going on. It helps us. So anyways, this was kind of interesting. I'm not famously the biggest fan of centrists, but when they win over hard right candidates, this was surprising. This was good. So Romania, not going to have a hard right leader in the next few years. So that's good. Goodish. This was great. UK, France, Canada threaten Israel against Gaza offensives. So other countries are really finally starting to speak out and say, actually, in 2025, manifest destiny doesn't work anymore, and you can't just kill and displace people so you can have your promised land. There's a little bit of pushback. So, I mean, obviously, these countries should be sanctioning Israel deeply. This is how the international community needs to stop genocide. If you don't want to see acts of violence from Hamas, from anyone else, from protesters, from this or that, from people who are crazy, from, whoever, the international community should step in and diplomatically resolve this situation. So, good. Misdemeanor charge against Newark mayor will be dismissed. Yeah, but I believe someone else was charged. I don't actually have the story for that. Yeah, I don't know if I have that here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, they filed an assault charge against U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver. So, that probably won't stick. But, yeah, they did drop the misdemeanor charge against the Newark mayor, Newark, New Jersey, who went to the Just Following Orders facility and said, what's going on, basically, is my understanding. Next up on the Goodish News segment, U.S. judge rules Republican President Donald Trump unlawfully ousted board members of the Institute of Peace. So this is a gross usurpation of power, according to a federal judge. But federal judges, that's just their opinion, I think. No, it's not an opinion. It's a verdict and a decision. Okay. So in her decision, Judge Beryl Howard said, Republican president overstepped his power when his administration removed 5 board members without cause from the nonprofit organization, which is funded by the U.S. Congress. So it's a nonprofit organization. It's not even part of the government. This was like really, I mean, just like for anyone who's like a Republican or a centrist, or they're like, they just think Joe Biden was so stupid, and that's their politics and nothing more. And so why do we look deeper at things? Just talk about, in the abstract, you have strong arming of a non-governmental organization. It just doesn't seem very small government, It just doesn't seem very small government. So The administration's move to control the group by acts of force and threat using local and federal law enforcement officers represented a gross usurpation of power and a way of conducting government affairs that unnecessarily traumatized the committed leadership and employees of the organization who deserved better. That's a judge's words. Social judge warrior, right? Just kidding. Yeah, and you can have issues with how these organizations are run. I'm not like, I don't think there are necessarily, that's not the basis of this administration's decision here, but you can have issues with how organizations are run. But you can also have a greater issue with how the intervention takes place. So, right. Mohsen Madawi released from ICE custody, graduates from Columbia. That's amazing. That's amazing. It's really, really amazing to see, and it's fantastic. Detained, no charges, nothing sticks. He was born in the West Bank, I believe. Yep. And he led pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia. And then when he went to his naturalization meeting, the government suckered him in to come to. They tried to arrest him, and they did arrest him, and they unlawfully detained him, and they released him because they were forced to. So, very cool to see. UK suspends trade talks with Israel over new Gaza offensive. So, UK trying to make some good decisions in there, get their reputation back a little bit. We already had this. What's the deal? Why am I... Is this... Oh, it's an updated version of the article, I believe. Oh, okay. U.S. is making efforts for a ceasefire? According to who? What? Because... How? I think we could literally make a ceasefire immediately. Like, if the U.S. president just came out and said, like, this is absolutely unacceptable, we're stopping all military aid and we're sanctioning Israel, I mean, that would be big. And I just, like, without international community, international law, there's no opportunity for justice. It is really fascinating. I was thinking about, like, there's this sort of, like, a really classic political philosophy problem of, like, how do you balance democracy with rights? In the sense of, like, if you have a democracy vote to take away people's rights, like, is that allowed? There are probably, like, words for this and names for this problem that I don't know. But, like, Israel's a really good example of that, where you have, like, it's obviously not everyone has voting rights like Palestinians, but it's this mass expulsion and murder of human beings in Palestine has broad support in the Israeli population. It's sad to say, and I believe that's because of propaganda. I believe it's because of generations of propaganda. I don't believe that the Israeli people are any less moral, really, like, deep down, but, like, their actions are probably less moral than the norm, obviously. I mean, they're aiding and abetting their country's genocide, and if they don't spend every day speaking up against it, they have some significant culpability. But it is an interesting thing because, like, democratically, they generally support by a large margin the war crimes that their country is committing. So in those situations, it's just nothing else to be done, but the international community steps in and says, enough's enough, stop. U.S. judge orders Trump administration to keep custody of migrants sent to South Sudan. So they're trying to send migrants who are human beings, very often legally in the country, and I believe almost all these cases. They're trying to send them to other countries that the migrants are not from, and that we shouldn't really have a right to just send residents of our country to. So our country, and South Sudan, obviously, long trusted ally, close ally of our country. We're always working together on initiatives with them. So, yeah, I mean, the Republicans, and for everyone who wants to say there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans, learn to see nuance, learn to see some nuance. So, because the Democrats don't technically do this, they still deport. There's still a lot of unjust immigration actions, and part of the reason that Democrats lose is because they don't actually present a viable difference in their immigration policy. But they don't necessarily do this to this extent, I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to defend the Democrats. But I do think there's a difference in terms of rights violations. So these people were deported in violation of a court order, which you could say is almost not deporting. It's almost human trafficking, you might say, when you deport someone without having the legal right to. That sounds like human trafficking to me, but I'll have to double check with a lawyer. Spain orders Airbnb to take down 66,000 rental listings. So that's pretty dope. Assuming that people will get to live in those places who are not rich tourists. Housing crisis. Okay. A lot of the listings were in violations of rules, actually. So it's not just some random thing. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, housing affordability, big issues. Scarcity has helped drive prices up much faster than wages. Yeah, this is an issue in a lot of U.S. cities as well. U.S. judge pauses enforcement of Oklahoma immigration law. So this was a law that imposed criminal penalties on non-citizens who enter Oklahoma illegally, saying the law likely intrudes on the federal government's authority over immigration. Yeah, that's wild. What? They were doing that? Oklahoma's like, actually, we'll have our own ICE. Thank you very much. All right. DEI boycott played a role in Target's Q1 sales slump as foot traffic declined. So, sorry, but when you collaborate with autocracy, you're going to be less popular with people. Shares of the retailer slid more than 70%. That means go down, by the way, in stock talk. 4% year-over-year decline in same-store sales. So it's going down. And okay. Yeah, so, I mean, maybe you should stand up to racist, white supremacist autocracy. So, just a thought. Detained Columbia student protester Mahmoud Khalil must be allowed to meet with wife, and he did meet with his kid, too, for the first time. He's been arrested on no charges, as far as I'm aware. He's a legal resident. He is here legally, and he's being targeted for his free speech because he is pro-Palestine and leading pro-Palestine protests at Columbia. So he did get to meet his child as well, which is obviously good. And maybe the government should stop arresting people for their political beliefs. But yeah, it's sort of the last-ditch effort to try to defend the Zionist ethno-state through fascist means in our country. Republican President Donald Trump officials violated court order. Why do we have the same articles coming up? This is a real problem. U.S. Judge nixes Treasury's bid to cancel IRS workers' union contract. So a federal judge rejected a bid by the U.S. Treasury Department to cancel a union contract covering tens of thousands of IRS staff, an early blow to Republican president's efforts to eliminate collective bargaining rights for many federal workers. So, dope. U.S. judge blocks Trump administration's plan to gut education department. By the way, if you're watching, let me know. Did you know all this stuff was happening, or is it hard to catch all the good news in the mix of the chaos? Federal judge ordered the Republican administration to reinstate more than 1,300 Department of Education employees. So they really do not. It's not that they actually think like that more people will get educated without an education department, by the way. It's like, if you sincerely push anyone on that, like they can't defend it. It's just like an ideological, well, I want to just see what happens. Split U.S. Supreme Court blocks taxpayer-funded religious charter schools. So this is big because it's the Supreme Court. So apparently Amy Coney Barrett decided to not be a theocrat for a day. And so, yeah, she didn't vote on it. She was like, I don't have an opinion on this one. Yeah, it would violate the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment limits on government involvement in religion. So that's kind of an important law. U.S. judge blocks Trump's mass layoffs in blow to government overhaul. This was big, too. Federal judge extended a block on the Republican president's attempts to have mass layoffs at 20 agencies. So he needs permission from Congress. What the hell? What is this, a representative democracy with 3 branches of government? What the hell? Most books pulled from Naval Academy Library are back on the shelves in latest DEI turn. It's really weird, but I mean, these free speech Republicans love book burning, apparently, but they're having a hard time getting away with it. They take 400 books off the shelves because they deal with anti-racism and gender issues, which are super threatening to loser white dudes. I'm a white guy, but I'm not a loser, so I can say that. Okay. Based on the new review, about 20 books are still going to be pulled, but a bunch are not. A few have been pulled, blah, blah, blah. Back and forth. This former Fox News Fox Weekend, what is it, the Weekend Update? Fox Weekend host who has serious allegations of sexual assault that have been levied against him, including police reports that have been filed. His mom said in an email to him and his ex that she thinks he was an abuser, I believe was the term, which she later took back because she didn't mean it. Everyone's mom says stuff like that to them in an email. You make your mom a little bit annoyed and she emails you and your ex-wife that you're an abuser. You know what I mean? I think we all have had that experience. So I'm sure it's not a testament to his character at all. Anyways, he's the head of the military-industrial complex. From Fox Weekend host to head of the military-industrial complex. But he doesn't like books, you know what I mean? And they scare him and they make him sad. And I think we should all be respectful of that. I don't, does he know how to read? You know what I mean? That's not for me to say. Brian Eno slams Microsoft for criticizes Microsoft for providing Israeli military with tech 30 years after he crafted Windows 95 startup sound. I'm going to be honest. Huge Brian Eno fan, did not know he made the Windows 95 sound. That's really cool for Windows that they went and got Brian Eno to do that. But not so cool that they are supporting Israel's genocide of Palestinian people. So he published an open letter saying, "Not in my name," which is really awesome, Brian. And he said, because Microsoft acknowledged in an unsigned blog post that it sold advanced artificial intelligence and cloud computing services to the Israeli military. So they are literally facilitating the murder of Palestinians, Microsoft is. And we'll have a few more articles about that later. As well as aided in efforts to locate and rescue Israeli hostages whenever Israel actually wants to do that, by the way. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, AP released an investigative report, found the Israeli military used Microsoft's Azure platform to transcribe, translate, and process intelligence gathered through mass surveillance and its genocide efforts. So, good job, Microsoft. No, good job, Brian Eno, for sure, though, to speak out against this and say he's going to donate what he originally got for it to, hopefully adjusted for inflation. Microsoft did not respond. But good for Brian Eno, and the tide is turning against Israel. Everyone is done closing their eyes. They're done falling for the bullshit about it being anti-Semitism. October 7th was not about anti-Semitism. The vast majority of hatred of Israel is not about anti-Semitism. The vast majority of violence that Israel has experienced from the states that surround it and from the other groups that surround it is not a consequence of anti-Semitism. It's a consequence of settler colonialism and imperialism and violence that Israel and the Western states that have backed it have been inflicting since before the Nakba, but certainly the Nakba in 1948 and the years since. So much displacement, so much murder, so much. It's so not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. Again, I'll say this again because I've said it in other times, but like, Jews immigrating to Israel, nothing wrong with that. Jews wanted to immigrate to Israel for the last century and a half. Great. You don't get to take over the country. You don't get to do it with the backing of Western powers that then support you taking over the country. You immigrate and you play by the rules of the place you're moving to. You don't displace a bunch of people and then kill a bunch of people. Ex-McKinsey partner who advised opioid maker Purdue Pharma sentenced to prison. A former McKinsey & Co. huge consulting firm partner was sentenced to 6 months. Oh, 6 months in prison? Oh, for destroying records related to advice that his company gave to Purdue Pharma on how to turbocharge sales of the... Wow, so 6 months in prison. And the company pays $500 million, cost of doing business, and he gets 6 months in prison. I wonder how many deaths are on his hands. Participated in a 2013 meeting with members of the Sackler family who owned Purdue Pharma and ultimately adopted the proposal of McKinsey to target high-value prescribers, including ones who prescribed opioids for illegitimate uses. So they intentionally targeted prescribers who prescribed illegitimate opioid prescriptions and got our loved ones addicted to drugs that are extremely hard to come off of for a lot of people. He emailed himself to delete our Purdue documents from laptop. Oh, why did you say per, buddy? Oh, you didn't want to write Purdue Pharma? And then you deleted the documents. 6 months in prison. What's this dude's name? Martin Elling. Martin Elling. 6 months in prison for helping for helping a drug dealer indirectly kill people. Oh, he said he's extremely sorry. What is this? The Everyone Makes Mistakes segment? It's coming up next, by the way. The judge blocks Republican Trump administration from revoking Harvard enrollment of foreign students. Okay, I said I wasn't going to go into detail on everything. I'm pretty sure I've gone into detail on every article, at least some amount of detail. So let's not and say we did. U.S. judge orders Republican President Trump administration to facilitate return of Guatemalan deportee. So they sent a Guatemalan man to Mexico, and they by mistake. It's interesting how many mistakes you can make when you don't give a shit. So, U.S. District Judge in Boston issued the order days after the Justice Department notified him that its claim that the man had expressly stated he was not afraid of being sent to Mexico was based on erroneous information. Does that mean it was a lie? So, this is a gay man who fled Guatemala in 2024 after facing death threats based on his sexuality. He entered the United States through Mexico in May 2024. An immigration judge in February granted him protection from being deported to Guatemala after an asylum officer found he had a reasonable fear of persecution there. Yet 2 days later, he was placed on a bus and sent to Mexico, a country where he was previously held for ransom and raped. So that is what our country is facilitating, violence against vulnerable people, because God forbid we create a safe place for people to go. Which, by the way, if you want to bring this back to Israel, Israel obviously was like Zionism started well before the Holocaust and well before, obviously. Before even the 1900s, to some extent, it obviously picked up pace at a certain point and after the Balfour Declaration. But Jews were persecuted. We were persecuted all around the world well before the Holocaust. There's been a ton of oppression that Jews have faced, as a bunch of other groups have faced. And really, if countries just were not anti-Semitic and we're not racist and we're not against all minorities. Like, Jews would have been allowed to just go wherever we wanted and wouldn't have necessarily felt the same pressure for Zionism if countries just let people, had better asylum rules, let people come in, the U.S. included, I'm not saying it doesn't justify Zionism, but what I'm saying is, like, we take away some of the incentive for an ethno-state when we make the existing states open, welcoming, and just to outsiders. 4 partners leave Paul Weiss following law firm's deal with Republican president. U.S. judge strikes down Republican president's order against law firm Jenner and Block. So, they try to go after these law firms. It's part of this, like, really awesome thing they're doing. Super cool. They're trying to crack down on prominent firms that represented Trump's political adversaries. Wow, super cool. That's really helping the average American. So anyways, how are you feeling? How we doing? That was good news. That was the Goodish news segment, right? And my hair is a little bit drier. I could probably wear the hat again, frankly, without kind of having any sort of problems. So, back with the hat. Should we try the hat for part 2? What do we think? It's not part 2. I just mean, for the rest. This hat's so cool. I feel so cool with this hat. I look cool, right? For the next segment, we're going to, we got a great one for you here. Oh my gosh. So we like to talk about how everyone makes mistakes on this channel. We talk about how people can change on the What's Therapy channel, obviously. A big part of that, and it's often even before the change, frankly, it should be, usually logically, but also after, is that everyone makes mistakes, and you make mistakes and you learn and you grow, and and we like to talk about mistakes filtered through the lens of the news. You know what I mean? Filtered through the lens of current events. I think that helps us all kind of expand our minds, so to speak. Not literally. No, literally. No, I don't know. Not literally. Come on in to the Everyone Makes Mistakes segment. So the Who fired drummer Zach Starkey for second time in a month. Unfortunately, they've parted ways with their drummer for the second time in a month. The drummer said he had been fired and asked to make a statement saying he had quit The Who, which he didn't even capitalize, apparently. But that's classic drummer stuff. You know what I mean? Drummers are always like, actually, I was fired. They're like, actually, I was fired. That's like classic drummer thing. I'm fired. There have been weeks of mayhem of me going in and out and in and out and in and out like a bleeding squeeze box. I don't know if I'm allowed to say bleeding. But that is classic. So, and in other Who news, Roger Daltrey doesn't want to embark on the Who's farewell tour with half-hearted Pete Townsend. So the Who is having all kinds of trouble. And you might be thinking, who? This is a band that like your grandfather liked, essentially. They're like, what's the Teenage Wasteland one? It's like, I'm about to sing Sweet Child of Mine. How does Teenage Wasteland go? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyways, they had this issue we talked about. Townsend said, the Who has gone on a bit too long with two of us dying. It does sometimes feel like flogging a dead horse. And then Daltrey said, if Pete doesn't want to tour, I don't want to be back with the Who on the road at 81 with someone who doesn't want to be there, if that's what he's saying. That's totally the type of thing to be talking about in public, for sure. You want to sort that stuff out. When you're in a band, you want to make sure you sort this stuff out in public. You want to do like separate interviews. Well, I really hope they keep touring. That's so important. I don't know. What's their view on Palestine? Like who are like, I don't know. Who cares? Okay. Next up on Everyone Makes Mistakes segment, FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, investigating after Newark air traffic control suffered 2-second outage. Okay, so we've talked about 90-second outage. We've talked about minute-long outage, this type of... This was a 2-second outage. Come on. You think air traffic control needs to constantly be seeing every single plane all the time? Is it never okay to take a break? You know what I mean? Do they not get... Like, do we really need to micromanage airplanes? Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sorry. I looked away for 2 seconds. You know what I mean? I guess I'm gonna freaking cause a Breaking Bad type of situation, aircraft-wise. I just feel like people have such unrealistic high standards. Like, I'm sorry. Air traffic control needs to constantly be paying attention to the skies. 24/7. They don't get a break ever. They don't get to turn off their system for 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds, just to kind of unwind. I mean, in all seriousness, this is a really big problem. It's so wild how out of date things can be, and it's remarkable that because this is so immediate, flying and the fear of flying, it's the type of thing where people are like, oh, okay, yeah, that's why we need government, right, yeah, no, my mom and dad's social security, no, that's a little bit more vague, hard for me to understand, yeah, consumer financial protection, yeah, the banks, I don't really get it, I don't really know what that does. Oh, the FDA, but what's their, they do weird stuff, right? CDC, but yeah, but they, are they, do we need them and so on? OSHA, do we need, but FAA, okay, FAA though, that's the one where people are like, government, please. So, Robert fucking Kennedy Jr. demands healthier school meals as Donald Trump, the president, cancels program that funded them. So let me try that again. RFK Jr. demands healthier school meals as Trump cancels program that funded them. Everyone makes mistakes. First graders at this elementary school in Arizona like eating food, apparently. But the fruits and vegetables they like eating were supplied with the help of Federal Local Food for Schools Cooperative Agreement Program, or LFS, which was set to distribute $660 million to school systems and child care facilities in 2025. But the USDA canceled that program as part of the Republican president, Donald Trump's plan to gut the federal government. And people said it's bad food. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but this person says it's not bad food. Yeah, right. That's the point. And also, like, if it's bad food, like, not giving them money makes it worse food. RFK did not respond to a request for interview. Maybe his voice is tired. I don't know. What's his deal? You know what I mean? Like, he talks a lot. He's always like, hey, I didn't work with any, organization for many years promoting anti-vaccine information. What are you talking about? Yeah, so a lot of children are hungry. Children need to eat as well. I don't know if you all know this. And often they need free school meals because their family might be very poor and not being able to supply them with lunch. So the USDA requires that schools serve at least a half cup of dark green vegetables every week. Wow, that's not that much. But there were quality issues with the romaine the district was purchasing, so it tried using locally grown butter lettuce. The lettuce cost more and needed to be washed and chopped by staff, but it was fresher. So that's the type of thing that the Republicans do not want. They do not want children eating food unless their parents can pay for it. I mean, that's literally true. So RFK, talk to your daddy and be like, Daddy. Capital One to pay $425 million to settle litigation over savings accounts. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay. Oh, okay. Litigation accusing Capital One of cheating savings accounts depositors out of much higher interest rates by not telling them they could move their money to higher yielding accounts. Everyone makes mistakes. They probably forgot. They falsely promoted high interest rates on its accounts while quietly offering much better rates to new customers on the similarly named other accounts. Huh. Oh, they didn't admit wrongdoing when they settled for $460 million, though. So, or $425 million. So they must not have done anything wrong. But Massachusetts hacker to plead guilty to PowerSchool data breach. 19-year-old. I think when we were 19, we all did stupid stuff when we were 19. So I hope they don't give this person too hard of a time. Data breach affected 18,000 schools. I mean, I will say this is not a good thing to do, Matthew. Okay. This is not, you could, use your talents in a more worthy way, You're going to leak this information unless you get paid a bunch of money? Not cool, bro. Use your talents in a more interesting way. So Bill Maher's podcast studio is shutting down. So I couldn't quite gather if the Club Random is stopping. But apparently it was like part of a studio where he had other people's podcasts on it too. I didn't... I like Bill Maher or I like laughing at Bill Maher because I find him a silly boy, but I don't know all of his business sort of ventures. But yeah, apparently the podcast he was like hosting are not doing things. Fred Durst's podcast never took off. Well, I guess, try to think of a Limp Bizkit song, and I was just getting the Kid Rock song. So apparently my music recall today is not on point. Limp Bizkit. No, I can't think of... There's that one Limp Bizkit song. I don't even know. I think if I thought of it, I wouldn't be able to say it. So anyways. Arrested New Orleans jail worker says he helped inmates escape after stabbing threat. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you not allowed to help inmates escape? United Airlines issues apology for in-flight meal problem. So apparently, they switched. They switched to a different company, and they had all kinds of logistical issues. One passenger said his flight had wine but ran out of sparkling water. Okay, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, did they have regular water? Gate Gourmet's decision to pull out of the San Francisco airport resulted in loss of over 800 jobs. And they were United's catering supplier before. Cool. I don't, yeah. Elon Musk, a guy who's hoarded more wealth than anyone in the world, says Tesla robotaxis will be geo-fenced and avoid some intersections after being asked about full self-driving, which you shouldn't be able to name anything that if it's not that, running a red light. So Business Insider reached out to this fella and said, hey, man, we took a ride in a Waymo and in a Tesla equipped with the latest software, and your Tesla ran a red light at a complex intersection. So Tesla was like, oh crap, yeah, no, totally, that we're gonna geo fence it because, but we're totally ready to roll out these robotaxis. Besides that one thing that we have to fix, yeah, for sure. Japanese farm minister resigns following gaffe over rice. So I'm sure we all heard about this. Japanese farm minister had to resign after saying that he never had to buy rice thanks to gifts from supporters. He said, I made an extremely inappropriate remark at a time when citizens are suffering from soaring rice prices. Yeah, that's pretty, like, how do you let that slip? That's so obvious. In other rice news, Amazon.com is sued over alleged sale of contaminated rice. So everyone makes mistakes, but this is not a deal. So for everyone buying their rice on Amazon.com. Joseph Biden had not received prostate cancer screening since 2014, spokesperson says. So I've since learned, I guess this is normal to not get prostate screenings when you're very old because it moves very slowly and there's other things that are much bigger concerns. So it's not really that big of a mistake. It doesn't seem like, but I was just, I just thought, he's just like, who can't relate to that? You know what I mean? Just like such a relatable king here, not getting preventative care in the United States because, it's not a priority. But like I said, apparently this is not a great example of that because it's not the most necessary thing. Chess Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen, who we talked about last episode, I spread some shade about Magnus, and you'll have to subscribe to the Patreon or YouTube membership to check that one out. Forced into a draw in a showdown against the World. So he played the World. 143,000 people played against him, so they vote on the moves, and they drew. So that's pretty cool that they drew him. That's really interesting, honestly, that 143,000 people were able to play as well as the best person when they pulled together. Apparently, they almost made some significant mistakes, but like it kind of shows the power of democracy, honestly, in some capacity. But yeah, it's not a good look. If I was Magnus, I'd be like, I really wanted to win that. So. Retired four-star U.S. admiral convicted on corruption charges. So everyone makes mistakes. Steering contracts to a company in exchange for a lucrative job. Why else would you be a four-star admiral? He ordered staff to award a $355,000 contract to a company and then began working there at $500,000 a year in 2022. Oh, okay. Good job, Robert Burke. Apparently, no one's allowed to, no one's allowed to get bribed anymore. So everyone makes mistakes. Department of Health Secretary just following orders. Kristi Noem Satan misstates the meaning of habeas corpus under Senate scrutiny. So look, she doesn't know what habeas corpus means. Okay, I'm sorry. Are we stupidity shaming now? She just started the job. Okay, she's probably not even done the training yet. She said habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country. Now, I literally think elementary school people would know that habeas corpus is a right. Okay, middle school kids, I don't know why I said middle school people. Middle school kids would know that habeas corpus, they wouldn't know what it is, but they would know that it applies to the citizen, not to the president. But anyway, she was probably too busy thinking about how she killed her dog and her goat. In 2024, Kristi Noem, a strong contender to be named running mate to Donald Trump, but nope, she ended up as Department of Homeland Security. She's very multi-talented. That her dog had an aggressive personality, and how she killed in one day, and published this in her own book because she's probably super not aware of what other people think and feel, you would assume. And we're not going to go into the details, but she's a fantastic person who is just following orders and will be remembered forever for just following orders. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un condemns warship accident as criminal. So they had an issue in North Korea. Things happen. Everyone makes mistakes. A warship, a destroyer turned over or something. It was getting eased into the water, and it was a risky maneuver, and something happened. I don't even. But it was, it like turned over or something. Everyone makes mistakes. That's what I'm trying to drill home here. Anyways, they detained an official over it, so I feel like they're not being very forgiving about that, and that's the one thing I would criticize North Korea on. Republican President Donald Trump calls his own foreign aid cuts to USAID devastating because he is totally with it. He said the impacts in Africa of his cutting to funding that helps people live, he said it's devastating. So, Washington, the United States was funding 17% of South Africa's HIV budget before the cuts. In the months since, testing and monitoring of HIV patients across South Africa has decreased. You can criticize USAID all you want, but this is evil. I mean, really, it's evil. To intentionally inflict harm like that, I don't know any other use of the word evil. Ford accuses law firms of fraudulent overbilling, including a 57.5-hour workday. Yeah, that's a bit long. Ford said the 57.5 hours that night partner Amy Morse allegedly billed on November 30th included 12.9 hours on request for admission, where parties ask opponents to admit that facts are true or documents are authentic. Another lawyer allegedly billed 29 hours to prepare for a travel to and attend to 2 trials on the same day in Los Angeles and near San Francisco. I don't really get, that seems hard to do. So just a little message to lawyers, be a little bit less obvious when you're doing fraudulent billing. Police officer partied at music festival and ran 5K races while she collected $600,000 for fake injury. Okay. I'm sorry, are police officers not allowed to have hobbies? Florida court orders convicted super cop and wife to pay over $2.4 billion to Mexico after taking cartel bribes. Okay, now you're not allowed to have a little side gig if you're a police officer. Apparently, this is not a free country. This person is imprisoned in the United States from Mexico. Oh, interesting. Okay. I don't know. Judgment, what'd they do? Convicted of taking millions of dollars in bribes to allow a cartel to smuggle tons of cocaine. Okay, well, probably just helping a friend, frankly. Exclusive. Hacker who breached communications app used by Republican President Donald Trump aide stole data from across U.S. Government. So it's a different hacker than we were talking about before. This is the person who hacked Mike Waltz's app that he was using. Reuters, you got a typo here. Put a space in between there. And Reuters identified more than 60 unique government users of the messaging platform Telemessage. And material from disaster responders, customs officials, several U.S. diplomatic staffers. So that's interesting, and it has not been previously reported, apparently. An April 30 photograph showed Waltz checking Telemessage's version of the privacy-focused app Signal. Phone numbers in the leaked data were correctly attributed to their owners. So based on a limited review, nothing seemed clearly sensitive, did not uncover chats by Waltz or other cabinet officials. One signal group, POTUS Rome Vatican Press GC, appeared to pertain to logistics of an event at the Vatican. It was like, how should J.D. Vance transmit the poison to Pope Francis? Just kidding. The White House said it in a statement. It was aware of the cybersecurity incident at Smarsh. What is this? What is Smarsh? Okay, never mind. I don't care. FTC drops case over Microsoft's $69 billion Activision Blizzard deal. So FTC said, actually, no big deal. Microsoft, you can purchase Activision. This is what it's all about. This is what the Republican dictatorship, and the Democrats are not great on these issues, but antitrust is a thing that Democrats and any opposition parties in any country should be pushing more, because, or I shouldn't say opposition because that could change, but like any sort of anyone working for the public good should fight back against monopolies, because they tend to make things worse for the employees, for the consumers. But FTC's like, we made a mistake. Sorry, we don't have a case, actually. We were just kidding about that being a monopoly. And they also dropped a case against Pepsi alleging price discrimination that favored Walmart. So, FTC had claimed PepsiCo's practices fed high consumer prices by placing other retailers ranging from large grocery chains to independent convenience stores at a disadvantage to Walmart. Interesting. So, backroom deals potentially. And coming back to Microsoft blocks emails that contain Palestine after employee protests. This doesn't really fit in the everyone makes mistakes segment, but I just wanted to talk about it. Microsoft employees have discovered that any emails they send with the terms Palestine or Gaza are getting temporarily blocked from being sent to recipients inside and outside the company. The No Azure for Apartheid protest group reports that dozens of Microsoft workers have been unable to send emails with the word Palestine, Gaza, and genocide in email subject lines or in the body of a message. Microsoft confirmed this. The block on these terms comes in a week when current and former Microsoft employees have been protesting against the company's contracts with the Israeli government during Microsoft's Build Developer Conference. We talked about Brian Eno, of course. Microsoft employee Joe Lopez disrupted the opening keynote of Build. Good job, Joe. During CEO Satya Nadella's keynote, Lopez yelled, "How about you show Israeli war crimes are powered by Azure?" And good way to go out. I mean, I will say that just an interesting sort of moral question. Yes, it's wrong to be working for Microsoft. Yes, it's wrong to be working for any company that very clearly is doing bad things. It is wrong, and it is better to withhold your labor from them, to make public statements like this, go out with a bang, and let that spiral into more people being conscientious objectors from enabling war crimes. And if you do work at companies like this, you are to some extent complicit, and I'm sorry to break the news to you, but that's how it works. Microsoft fires employee. Yeah, we talked about that. Massive data breach exposes 184 million passwords for Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and more. Like, this is a different data breach. So it's just like, this is happening just every day. And I realize, like, this must just be like, I mean, I bet you, like, the hackers must have such connections. There must be all these, like, backroom connections between hackers, companies, and governments, because they all want the data. And they're just passing it around, probably. I don't want to keep... There's too much. We got to move on. Starbucks bars customers in South Korea from turning their orders into political statements. Again, it's not really a mistake. I just wanted to mention this. Ordering drinks through the app under politicians' names instead of their own, sometimes combined with calls to support or oppose them. Starbucks is so lame. Oh, you can't do that. Like, give me a break. New head of Social Security hired from Wall Street tells staff he had to Google the job when he was offered this. And I heard when he was offered it, I heard the recording of this on the Majority Report. And oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. Dude's making a fool of himself. And he does sound intoxicated. He sounds to me like he's intoxicated and drunk, but I could be wrong. I would never make that allegation that he was. It just clearly comes off to me like he was drunk on this first call that he's having with the Social Security managers from around the country, when he goes, I'm one of the great Googlers on the East Coast. Okay, dude. And then he goes, what the heck's the commissioner of Social Security? Dude. I'm sorry. Did you not learn that when you were chairman and CEO of financial technology companies? Okay. I'm sure he, what do they have that he donate? Hold on. Or not donate. Is donate the word? Campaign contribution. What's the word? He donated, or he paid a bunch of money, right, to Trump. Do they not have, is that not pertinent information? Anyways, he's clearly not qualified, but everyone makes mistakes, okay, yes, he got, put into a post that he's not qualified for. Sure. But, everyone makes mistakes, I'd say. And I have said. I feel like they don't say that he's... He says, did you guys know there was a protest against me? Who knows there was a protest against me? I like that protest. I want to prove them so wrong, man. This is going to be the most fun I ever had. Yeah, we'll see about that, buddy. We'll see about that. Let's see how you do with Social Security, Frank Bisignano. And lastly, on Everyone Makes Mistakes segment, U.S. Justice Department reaches deal with Boeing to allow plane maker to avoid prosecution. The U.S. Justice Department said everyone makes mistakes. Okay, yes, your plane crashes killed 346 people. But you shouldn't be branded a convicted felon. This agreement was harshly criticized. This deal was harshly criticized by many families who lost relatives in the crashes, whose family members died and had decades cut off of their life because of Boeing's alleged fraud. The U.S. Justice Department is saying, don't worry about that fraud case. Just pay a little cost of doing business. No worries. Boeing had to plead guilty to a criminal fraud conspiracy charge after the two crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia spanning 2018 and 2019. Boeing will no longer plead guilty. Turns out DOJ made a mistake. So they've faced enhanced scrutiny since January 24 when a MAX 9 missing 4 key bolts suffered a midair emergency, losing a door plug. Capitalism, you got to cut costs. Sometimes you got to cut costs and you got to crack a few eggs. Sometimes you got to crack 346 eggs to make an omelet, and no one should be held accountable for that, right? I think we all agree. Companies are people sometimes and other times not. So, and DOJ officials found last year that Boeing violated a 2021 agreement that shielded the plane maker from prosecution. Well, I'm sure if we just never hold them accountable, probably they'll eventually just improve. I think so. All right. So that's the sort of the two big news segments, and then we could call that the news section overall. That's not going to be a official title, but it's sort of the news section with the two segments within the section, obviously. All right, let's move on to the video segment. The video segment is a great time. Sometimes it's just an okay time. Other times it's great. We got a 4-part video segment. First part's quite serious, but I wanted to show this video. This is this is Ayman Odeh, a member of the Arab Jewish Hadash party in Israel, forcefully removed. So look at his speech. This is honestly inspiring. And again, showing how the tide is turning, that even within the Zionist ethno-state of Israel, which appropriates Jewish symbols to act like it represents the Jewish people, individuals are in the government are speaking out finally and forcefully. So read the subtitles of what he says and so on. That's true. Very, very weak. After a year and a half in a war, you killed 19,000 children. It's really inspiring. And all these people who just sit there and who yell out against him, history will remember you. Your kids, your grandkids, people who you know, they will remember which side you were on and how you yelled at someone who was saying you were killing too many children. Just a bunch of brainwashed people. And this is so true. He says there is no political win. It's true. Israel is starting to... Look at what he says here. You feel there is no political win, and that's why you go crazy. He's so right. He's calling them out to their face that there is no political win. They're starting to realize you can't do Manifest Destiny in 2025. Why are you all weak? Wow. It's true. No courage on the other people. Why are you sad? Why are you not happy? This is such a really strong way to make this argument. Really, it couldn't be better. Yeah, keep yelling at him, guys. Yeah, keep yelling at him. Yeah, look at you. I'm sure you're a very happy person. I'm sure you're a very happy person with blood all over your hands. What, is that blood on your hands or is that your fingernails? You get Palestinian blood under your fingernails? Yeah, go ahead, remove him. Remove him. We saw what he said, and he was right. He was right. And the fact that you can't even take it shows how right he is. Yeah, he's right. A bunch of weak losers who can't even listen to the facts of the case. So disturbing and hard to watch, but I think really useful to understand the moment we're in. It's really becoming clear to everyone that Israel has been displacing and killing people and committing war crimes for quite a while, but for the last year and a half, it's been genocide. It's been getting rid of a specific ethnic group. It's been settler colonialism, taking that territory. I mean, the settlements. I saw a number the other day. It was like 300,000 Israeli Jews have moved to the settlements since in the last like decade or two or something like that. And then it's been a long running apartheid, and it's escalated in the last year and a half, and enough's enough. So for the next part, and the video segment gets progressively more fun. So we start with like the least fun possible thing imaginable. Now part 2 of the video segment, we're moving into, it's another, we're kind of sticking with the theme of a hall of government, but this is a more fun version of that. So let's see, just like a real symbol of the state of the U.S., a real symbol of the decline of representative liberal democracy in the United States. This individual, Miss Green, Representative Green, just a nice kind of moment here where you see what happens when... Did I thumbs up then? Or which is... Oh. When Representative Green asks for decorum, and this is someone who not necessarily the most known for her decorum, so let's just see how people react.
The members are reminded to abide by decorum of the House.
That's pretty good. Hey, Marjorie, I know you got family money, so it doesn't really matter, but if this whole government thing doesn't work out, maybe comedy. I mean, her delivery was great. It was so dry. It was like Nathan Fielder level. Like,
the members are reminded to abide by decorum of the House.
Gets a good laugh. You know how many comedians would kill for this laugh? Marjorie, what are you doing? Take Daddy's money and go to Netflix. You can still talk about conspiracy stuff. Just do a Netflix. Come on, you got the chops. You got the chops, kid.
The House will be in order.
You got the chops, Marjorie, and no one can take that away from you. Part 3, hold on, let me just make sure. Well, we'll do this as part 3, so we end with the most fun one. This is kind of funny. So if you're probably not like a chess fan if you're watching this because you're cool, you know what I mean? You're probably too cool for that. You're like, I don't even know what chess is, you know what I mean? So, well, that's not cool, actually. That's a little too far in the other direction. But anyways, this is a big chess channel, Chess Base India, and they're interviewing Chess.com co-founder and CEO Eric Alabest. And there's this really funny moment. I didn't watch the whole interview. I just saw this clip where the chess.com CEO, so if you don't know much about chess, there's like chess.com is the big chess website. They have all the money. They sponsor all the big events. And then there's lichess.org, which is free, better designed, better functioning, has pretty much everything you would ever want and more, and is free and no ads, and everything's great, and it's like a super nice interface. And anyone who still uses chess.com is maybe just like a little afraid or something of making the jump. But this is really funny because here he's asked directly about his thoughts about Lichess, and I just thought he gives the most like CEO answer, because he's trying everything possible to like not be like, yeah, they're better than us and they're free, and I have no idea why anyone would use my company's website.
Really grow from there.
Very interesting take. You did mention also about Lichess. How do you feel overall about Lichess and their existence there in the space of chess? Because
I
it's
think
like both are play zones, quite different from each other. And what do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, every healthy ecosystem needs multiple players, as you said.
They need the one that you pay for, and that's not as good, and then they need the one that you don't pay for, and that is better.
And you know, everyone has different tastes and different needs and different preferences, and you know, it's a very healthy part of the ecosystem.
Okay, so he said healthy ecosystem twice. Okay,
they're also a big barrier to competition. I mean, imagine today trying to.
So Lichess is a barrier. That's interesting. I actually didn't hear that part. Lichess is a barrier to competition because they're so good. But he's like, they're not a barrier to our competition because we got the chess.com domain and we got a lot of money.
I think you're going to create a play server, and you have to, you not only have to, you know, you'd have to try to beat chess.com, but you'd have to try to beat Lichess. There's no space there.
This is such an interesting way to put it.
There's just no space. So it's a very healthy dynamic with the two. And you know, people can have preferences if you know.
Yes. I mean, I've not in a long time seen anyone say they prefer chess.com. I like seeing ads.
We like to joke around. If you like an artificially high rating, go play on Lichess.
That is so weird. Like your rating is different on chess.com, Lichess, because these rating systems are, look, I don't know all the details, but they use slightly different versions of the rating, the ELO rating system. But like, it doesn't matter because like already the rating system is so different from like your regular, if you play like in tournaments, it's easier to get a higher rating online than in tournaments. But also, like, it doesn't matter at all. Like, why would you care? Like, your rating is specific to the website. Like, if you're like, oh, I have an 1800 rating on chess.com and a 2000 rating on Lichess, like, yeah, because they're just relevant to the different sites. And, like, why would you ever care? Be like, I'm going to play on this one site because it has a more accurate rating system. Like, regardless, it still matches you up with people around your level. Like, who cares, dude? What a weird flex to be like, their rating system's slightly more inflated than ours, which is already, not like, there's no perfect rating system. So it's like pointing out the like smallest thing that's not a feature really of the site at all. It's like not one of the things that you get for free. Like it's,
I'm kind of teasing there, kind of not teasing at the same time.
Well, it's a really silly point, Eric, because as someone who uses these websites, it doesn't matter at all.
But, they do have an important place there. They have a different business model. I mean,
yeah, it's not profit oriented, actually, is what the difference is.
Not a business model. It's a donation model.
Right.
And, they don't have the reresources that we have.
I'm just curious if he's going to say healthy ecosystem again.
Honored that as a more capitalist or more financially driven, we drive revenue, and then that revenue.
Look, I don't want to be a total hater. Like, it's obviously very important for there to be money in the sport and for like chess players to get paid. It's just a really not ideal situation. There should be like a union for chess players. It's really hard for chess players to make a living unless they're literally in like the top 20, top 100. I mean, that they'll have to do coaching and other things, but which is fine. It's not like there's something wrong with that. But the fact that chess.com has all the money, like they are able to put on paid events that make good entertainment. It's just like, It just doesn't make it a better site for users. They could just go into the like tournament business, but it's not a better site for users.
Goes out back to people who, the 700 people you showed in the picture. It goes out to the professionals who are
I don't know.
playing.
This wasn't that interesting.
And, we feel very honored to be able to have a healthy economy to grow.
Okay, so not a healthy ecosystem, healthy economy. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay. Okay, let's see here. And lastly, for the video segment, we have checking in with David Vladimir Rubin. Which I sort of teased this last time. He has a new enterprise. No telling on the funding. I don't know about the funding. I'm not saying it's suspicious. I'm not alleging there's suspicious funding. I'm saying I don't know what the funding is. So that could just be from not having looked into it. I'm sure it's on the up and up. But what I love about this is Dave has friends. And for a lot of people who have been saying, and okay, one of them might have very, very weird charges up against them, very serious charges up against them right now. But that is just one of them, This person, Emily Wilson, is new on this episode, filling in for Jillian Michaels, who I don't really know. I know that she's famous. I've seen her on a few things recently, or like sub-famous. But, so anyways, it's like, it's called Actual Friends. And so I love that because a lot of people have been saying Dave Rubin doesn't have friends, but he totally does. Now, when we look at Dave Rubin's content, which we do several times, we've definitely done that. The most viewed Verbal Journal podcast is checking out the old Rube Meister. The old Rube. Does anyone call him that? Rube himself. I'm sorry. Why did I think it was Sam Cedar and Tim Pool? Why did I think it was Dave Rubin? I think I just confused Tim Pool and Dave Rubin in my mind. I'm losing it. Okay, so that was an interesting reference. Some people will get. Unintentional. Okay, anyways, Dave Rubin's here. The thing is, when we look at his content, which we've done before, it wasn't that one, but it was, oh, you know why I was confused? Here's why I was confused. Yeah, because it was also in the most recent public episode. That's what I was thinking of. My mistake. We looked at this interview or debate, I guess, and it was really funny. And when I look at, oh, whoa, he's really tired in that one. When I look at Dave, I never really know what to look at. I never prep because I don't watch his stuff, actually. I just find it entertaining. So, but it always ends up funny, So here they timestamp things. It's very polite. Let's just kind of say political and human aspects. What does that mean? Okay, let's hear Dave talk about political and human aspects. Okay. Is this AI generated timestamps? Because that's sort of a confusing.
The likes of Joe Scarborough with his endless sharp as attack technique.
Yeah, well, first off, I think you already served the community with your open shirt there. But
That's awesome. That's a hilarious joke. Dave, I got to give credit where credit's due. I can't make fun. That's funny. I was trying to think of a zinger about his open shirt, and that was good.
For Biden and all of the rest of it, I agree with what Sage said there in terms of like you have to look at like the human part of this and then the political part. Like
I've spent time looking at the Goodreads reviews of Don't Burn This Book. His book over there. Or he has two books. Like one is like Don't Burn This Book, and then one is like Don't Burn This Country. And by the way, the Republicans who Dave supports, we talked about earlier, removing books from libraries. Democrats are not doing that. Republicans are doing that. Removing books. Oh, it's about gender. There's freaking books about gender, bruh. Anyways, Dave, his brand is like, I'm just like the free thinking guy. I'm so free thinking that I'm a gay man who's a Republican who supports people who are cracking down on rights of other vulnerable groups, that the idea that sexual orientation minorities would be targeted is in no way far-fetched. That's how free-thinking of a guy he is. And if I knew better statistics, I bet you there are ways they're actually cracking down on like rulings or planning on it. But they chip away. They start with violent criminals who are in the country illegally, and then they go to people who are in the country legally, and then they go to people who are citizens, which has already happened. They've trafficked citizens out of the country. It's the same thing with domestic legislation relating to policy, where it's like, we'll go after trans people because there's still a lot of folks who don't know any trans people and don't understand at all what it's like to be a trans person or ever heard a trans person talk or anything. And then we'll go after, gay people or just women, in ways that we can try to, rally majorities and sort of chip away at the rights that, what's so necessary to emphasize. I know we haven't really watched anything yet. It's a bad video segment when you're not watching the video a lot, but I just want to say it's so important to always remember like racism and like bigotry of all kinds, misogyny. It always relates back to the power structure and enforcing a particular hierarchy and really enforcing a particular division of labor and resources. Like you will almost always find that like racism stems from and bigotry stem from like rationalizations and justifications for like political and economic oppression. And I guess you could do like a chicken and egg situation, but it's just, I'm not saying anything new here, but it's really fascinating how I think it's so important to see racism in that way, because it's not a matter of like people are just bad people for being racist. It's like people are hoodwinked by political, economic, and actors who incentivize. Like, would we have responded to COVID differently and required the government to take more actions if we didn't dehumanize Chinese people, and if we were able to see Chinese people as real human beings here in the U.S.? And when they were dying, if we valued that more, would we have taken more action or required our government to take more action? Or like all the examples where people of different, ethnicities or whatever you want to call it, like white people, black people, all other types of people in workplaces are turned against each other, or racism is utilized to try to divide people, in workplaces and communities. Obviously just a whole history of slavery would probably be a good example of, in many countries, like the ways that race is used as a justification for the most pure, blatant economic exploitation. It's just so important, it's just so interesting to think about, because it gives you a real basis to explain in multiple broad ways the phenomenon that you're talking about, and not just one, because it's like many sides of the same beast. There's probably so many other good examples, but I just wanted to say that because I was thinking about this recently, and let me know what you think about that. There's probably better, more eloquent ways I could have expressed that, but
like if we're all so hard-hearted at this point, where even
he's talking about Russell's open shirt, and he's like, if we're all so hard,
if someone disagrees with you 100% on 100% of the issues, that you can't have sympathy or empathy for someone that is likely going to die fairly soon at this point.
He's talking about Joe Biden. This is so stupid. What? They're talking about how people should have empathy for Joe Biden.
from this disease that we will all be confronted with one way or another.
In my opinion, it's like you don't have to have empathy. You can have empathy or not have empathy for one guy who's done horrible stuff dying. It's not a judgment on your personality. You have an emotional reaction. You know, what you do, like, feelings are valid. You know, you have your feeling, you have empathy, you don't, you care, you don't. That's, you know, it's not the same as, like, do you have empathy for, like, wrongdoings taking place? This is like an old man, like, getting like sick and dying. Like, what's there, like, it's not that, I mean, I'm not, you know, it's not my friend, it's not, you know, a family member, it's not that shocking. So it's not the same as, like, having a moral outrage at a wrongdoing taking place, which, you know, it would be justified to morally criticize someone. This is something I was just reading T.M. Scanlon's What We Owe to Each Other. And this is something he actually explores a lot, is like, why do we feel justified judging or having moral criticisms of people who do not, who are amoral, who do not have moral, like, care? So if someone, like, looked on to the violence against Palestinians and was like, well, you know, whatever, bombs get dropped sometimes, you know, why would we feel justified in saying you are, you have a repugnant, you know, judgment of that issue or so on? And it's just because there's something about moral ideas and moral reasoning that is particularly important to us and helps us maintain a stable society and a set of, like, interpersonal, like, moral contracting agreements or whatever. So, you know, if someone doesn't get outraged at, like, or if someone doesn't feel bothered or outraged by actual wrongdoing taking place, that's quite different than not caring that, like, an old guy is dying, like, who I don't know and who has been culpable for enormous amounts of pain and death. He literally called him a Zionist. I mentioned this sometimes, like, Harris and Trump didn't even go that far. I mean, they're obviously supportive of the Zionist state to the ultimate degree, both of them. But Biden was literally like, I'm a Zionist. I don't give a fuck, you know, whatever. I've been, like, the worst guy my whole career and, like, somehow ended up doing amazingly. Like, I have no idea what's going on. Anyways, this is hilarious that Dave's taking the, like, chastising the public approach with Biden, who he, like, denigrates more than anyone.
Another, whether it's cancer or whether it's a cognitive problem, as I talked about last week.
Like, what? Do you think this is the high road, dude? Like, what?
We've all had family members involved in this stuff, and, like, it's going to come for us one way.
For sure. You don't have to be a dick about it, but you also don't have to feel empathy about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people should be, like, publicly laughing about it. It's just poor form, you know? It makes you look bad, so...
or another, whether it's the of or the with, right? So that's one part. And then there's the political part that, because the world is just so filled with lies right now, I think it makes it hard for a lot of good people to have empathy, because they're just like, oh, here's just another lie. So then the good part of them just kind of gets, like, enveloped by just, like, fighting back against the BS. But, you know, Russell, to the clip that you just...
probably true to a really significant extent if you interpret it in, like, a charitable way. And I think that's true. I mean, we do deal with a lot of misinformation that probably, you know, sticks and covers over our good parts. Let's kind of jump because, you know, oh God, what's his take on South Africa? I'm sure he's super informed about the history of apartheid and anti-black landowning legislation. And the relatively extremely insignificant amount of violence against white farmers. Maybe the reason there's so much violence against white farmers is that an extremely disproportionate amount of the arable land, I believe 75% of the arable farmland in South Africa, is owned by white people who are, like, less than 10% of the population. Black people are, like, 80+% and own, like, 5% of the arable farmland or something like that. Historically, the land has been literally taken from the black people. It's not like it's just, oh, things just ended up this way. White people, at two major points in the last century, I forget exactly when, early 1900s, mid 1900s, legislation was passed to appropriate land from black people to white people. So what's going on now is a legal process that's very slow, hasn't even really started, but legislation has been passed for some land to be given to black people. It's not being confiscated from white people without payment. and every country has these types of rules where the government can appropriate land. It's totally normal.
Seen that before, you guys, in the Oval Office?
I mean, it was like, where's the popcorn, man? You're showing us a movie.
Savage. I would have paid money to sit there and watch it. And
Oh, wow. They're fans of... So obviously, you know what they're referring to. The U.S. Republican president, Donald Trump, had the South African president in his office. And it's kind of hard to cope with, but like because of this being the day and age we live in, like the U.S. president, almost like Better Call Saul season 1, episode 1 style, where they wheel in a TV to the courtroom, in the opening shot. Amazing way for a series to start. The president brings in this, they show him a little video of something. It was actually ended up being, it ended up being, I think, a little bit of a issue in regards to some of the details. Here we see Reuters. Republican President Donald Trump's image of dead, quote, white farmers came from Reuters footage in Congo, not South Africa. That was not the video. That was just a picture. So there was a lot of stuff going on. Anyways, these 4 people who you want to believe, I honestly believe are like not bad people. Or, well, Russell, I honestly I'm not sure about that. But, I don't know these people, and Ruben, I'm mostly just talking about Dave, you know what I mean? I'm mostly just thinking about Dave. They just look like her expression, like they all look sad to me. They look like they, feel bad about what they're doing, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just projecting.
I just looked up his name to confirm it. Cyril Ramaphosa, I think it is.
Yeah.
The South African president. When you see him smiling and laughing, and all of a sudden Donald Trump says, "Yeah, turn down the lights," and he's like, "Ha ha ha."
Okay, let's see if they know anything about what's actually going on in South Africa.
Called out. Who else would have done what Donald Trump did there?
Okay, yes, we understand it was an unusual thing to do, but was it correct?
Right about what the issues are, or at least most of the time, but then he understands the media component, and I feel like that was just like a new tool that he pulled out of the kit right there. So that was incredible.
Wow, that's such a weird take to be like, oh, it was so cool that he showed a movie, because a lot of people see that. I mean, not to again, go to Reuters, but it was like, I don't know. There was something about how, like, oh yeah, second Oval Office ambush by Trump could make foreign leaders think twice. So, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they don't have any evidence for that claim. We could see. In an extraordinary scene, reminiscent of Zelensky's visit, Trump made false claims about genocide against white people, and what do they have to back up what they're saying? I don't know. They just have some people, I don't know. Who knows what world leaders say? Maybe world leaders see that and they're like, that was awesome, I would love to check out the scene over there at the Oval Office. You never know what they'll show me. But yeah, Trump has canceled aid, expelled South Africa's ambassador, and resettled some white minority Afrikaners based on racial discrimination claims people say are baseless. The program has been divisive as the Republican president, Donald Trump, has been largely blocking refugee admissions from the rest of the world. But white people, he wants to bring in because it shows the white supremacy that his bitch boy Stephen Miller likes. No such expropriation has taken place in any order can be challenged in court. Yeah. Anyways,
But to
back to the stunning commentary here.
Russell, to your point, you can't solve past discrimination with current discrimination.
Actually, that is literally wrong, and the only way to solve past discrimination is with current discrimination, actually, definitionally. Tell me how you make up for any past wrongdoing without doing what could be described as discriminating. Wow, Russell ended up doing a podcast with Dave Rubin. Oh, Russell.
And interestingly, I had a guy by the name of Rob Herzog in the studio just this afternoon. It's going to be up on Saturday. And he is a South African businessman, an entrepreneur, and investor. I had him on in London in February.
Okay.
And that video that we did talking about what's going on with the farmers in South Africa went crazy viral. Elon.
I mean, this, just so you know, if you're like a normal person who doesn't like know about this stuff, for years, at least 10 plus years, like or more, I'm not, I probably more. The white South African issue is like, it's a rallying cry for white people who are insecure, don't feel super confident about themselves, and rely on something like white supremacy to feel some sense of fulfillment and community. And so they go to like, oh, the white South Africans are being targeted for being white, because it's like the only place you can see anything even remotely similar to a concept of that, but then when you look into the details, if you're willing to, it's so obviously like, oh, they've been an apartheid state for a century and they're making legal and reasonable steps to try to rectify it, and white people are a minority there for a reason. Like, they don't need to have all the ownership of all the resources in the land. So it's just like, yeah, but it's an issue. So when Dave says his video went big, it's like, right, no, that's like a strong like divisive political issue. It's like the great replacement sort of vibes.
Tweeted it twice. South Africa was then the top trend on Twitter for a day because of it. And
and not because of the owner being a South African too.
From a family that benefited from apartheid. As he described, he has a 5-generation white family in South Africa.
What? I mean, I was assuming it was something bad, but what?
That grew up with butlers and with, living in gates. And he does not deny any of those things.
Where is Dave going to go to land this?
Absolutely. Interestingly, what he said was that, when apartheid fell and the regime...
Because what he's said so far is he interviewed someone who benefited from 5 generations of apartheid this just earlier today. And that's part of his information about what's going on in South Africa, seemingly a big part. And he says he released a video that did well that was about what's happening to white farmers in South Africa who own 75% of the farmland, and they're less than 10% of the population, and black people have been historically barred from that important resource.
Regime fell, basically. So now we're talking post-Mandela. When it fell, that there was sort of like a coalition government that was trying to deal with how do you heal these things, because they knew you can't just go from all of this separation to like magical utopia, as if that exists anyway. And what he described was they really did have it for a while. There was unbelievable investment because the whole world was like, oh, we defeated apartheid. So then there were...
Right, but when you're talking about he's trying to say, like, how should they make up for the bad state, right? But investment is not really investment is not relevant to how you make up for apartheid. It's sort of a separate issue.
There was all this investment into South Africa. It's an incredibly beautiful country, actually. So there was
everywhere. So is everywhere. Why do people say stuff like that?
To build and all of this stuff. And then unfortunately what happened, and this is where he kind of connected it to what's going on with us in the United States, is then the kind of grifter class comes in. And they're like, oh, we see all the history and the wounds and everything. So they just don't let go of the past. And then because of that, it
sounds like he's trying to criticize capitalism almost. In a way, like the liberal, neoliberal, like co-opting of like social justice causes in this like twisted way.
Has stoked a new generation of racial tension. He also did connect the fact that part of the stuff.
So it's the reforms of the apartheid state that have stoked a new generation of racial tension, says this fifth generation white Afrikaner to Dave this morning, that Dave is just uncritically repeating. Dave brought up that fact that he was an apartheid benefiter and then just never landed it. You know, you thought there was going to be like a but, you know, but he's not. It was like an and. This is what he said. I don't know what the but could have been, as I was saying. So, yeah.
As it relates to the farmers is not exactly all racial. Now, a lot of the farmers happen to be white, but what he said is South Africa has now failed as a state in so many ways that part of what's going on with the farmers is just that they don't live in the cities, and because they're out there farming on their own land, there just aren't services to protect them anymore.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know, Dave. I don't know whether that is the issue with South Africa. I will say that. I would just double check when you have a guy like that on your program. Okay, well, I think we saw enough, right? I think we saw enough. So we saw Dave's we got more to do here. This has gone way too long. Okay. All right. So let's get into the follow-ups here. On the previous episode, we got a few follow-ups. What's this first one here?
It's like slave labor, essentially, of like foreign residents who like don't have the same.
I meant to say foreign-born residents. So I just wanted to correct that. Sorry about that. Next up, this quick follow-up.
Losers. You know,
Guess I've been using the word loser a lot. That's not the point. Quick follow-up here.
I mean, the government. Next up, and lastly on the good news desk.
I'm so sorry. I keep saying desk. They're not desks. They're segments. So that's different. We don't do desks anymore. Everything's just a segment. So I'm sorry about that. Next up, one more follow-up. Just lastly, this is important, you know. I can't have people calling me out later. Okay?
King Charles or whatever his name is.
Sorry, hold on. I didn't start that early enough.
Alligator. The name of Sir Mike? No, because I've discussed on this channel who goes by the name of Sir Michael Knowles. I believe he's been knighted by Jeffrey Epstein's friend, King Charles or whatever his name is. That's a allegation that I would.
No, it's not even. I was repeating a conceptual idea that was wrong. It was nothing. And this is I don't think they were friends. King Charles cuts brother Andrew's cash following backlash over Jeffrey Epstein friendship. So totally different than what I said. Wrongly, and why the royal family is standing by Prince Andrew as the Epstein scandal unfolds. Well, that's different. Hold on. What is that? Wait, hold on. Don't rush to any conclusions, because Prince Charles is less than happy that the royal family has been. So I think that that's just something that needed to be clarified for everyone, so no one can get any mistaken ideas or anything, And sorry for any misunderstandings in that regard. So, all right, let's get on to the nothing else but the mailbag to do. Let's get on to the mailbag. So you can write into verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to have your email read. And we read emails. People send in improv suggestions. No one wrote in today, which is fine, because this is a long enough episode already. But one day I'm actually going to do less news. I know I've said that before, but one day I actually am going to do that. And so, if you write in, that will sort of make that easier. So if you want to have less news, write in. If you want to still have the same amount of news, you can still write in. Just, let me know, I guess, what you think. Okay. So fantasy segment. Let's get on to the fantasy segment. This is where I talk about my fantasies. baseball, my fantasy baseball team. And I am doing well this week. So this is a big deal. I am 5-3. Every week is a different matchup. 5-3 so far this baseball season. I'm playing in a league, and I am this week up against another person who's 5-3. So we're both like second in our division in the league. There are 2 divisions of like 5 teams each or so, 4 teams each, 5 teams each. And so if I win, that would be really good. And I'm like 30 points up, which is a lot, but he has like 3 pitchers. So if each of them does really well, they could get like 20 points each. That's hard though. Probably they won't all do that well, but I have 2 pitchers throwing. And they're good ones. I forget who, Bassett and someone else. And so it could be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. I'm up a good amount, but I need a solid day or else I won't pull it out. You know what I mean? So to speak. Okay. So root for me, please. Oh, and I won last week. Well, I guess I got to follow up on that. What was last week? It was close, right? I think. How did it go? I don't remember, but I think I won. If it was, so follow up there. Patron shout out. So let's patrons and the members. I don't discriminate. That'd be funny if one time I was like, actually, fuck the members. So patrons, thank you: Caffeine, Marrow, Sandonica, Parker, Dakota, Neural Damage, Francis, Aiden, Noah, Burrow, Emil, Perpetually Jackson, Icelack, Caleb, Miranda, Ruben, Ibnomad, MK, Matt, X, Noah, Anastasios, Linguist, Sam, King, Tom, Verbal Gerbil, Hugh, Redgrove, Elemancy, Platinum Sarge, Rabid Dog, Roman, Ian, Russ, Irene, MJ, Goff45, Swit, Ryan, Madeline, Mr. Moxie, Brent, Molly, Kyle, Ashley, Scott, Luca, Gunther, Thulusaurus Rex, Miles, and User. Thanks for your support. I appreciate the dough. Helps me live. But you can stop at any time. And members, thank you, Little Mia, Ollie the Fourth, Maddie, Tanis, Ramon, Matthew, Jasmine, Simply Snaps, Jifa, Hollow Moon, Pit Inhabitant, and 39% Weird. Thanks for the support, y'all. I appreciate it. You're so cool. And it's about time we called it a day. Thanks to the public. If you want access to all the private episodes from the past and the future, and there's a lot of them, and they get good. Some of them are good. Some of them are fine. Anyways. Then give me a few bucks and come on and hang out at the Patreon and so on. And, and we do have a Discord. I don't use it much, but, we do have it. And, I had a hat, so I proved that. That's the important part. Okay, well, I'll see you soon, I guess, sometime. Keep on keeping on, and I wish you the best, and thanks for watching. Okay, bye.
This is a podcast or something like that.